Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Salim Akhtar Malik, your host at the Observation Post channel. In this channel, we discuss issues of national and international importance, as well as security matters, which deal with both the internal security as well as external one. In this session, we'll be discussing about the recent ceasefire which has been concluded between India and Pakistan along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. Reportedly, the agreement has been concluded between the two armies. Naturally, when we talk of two armies, the governments are involved, and without the nod of the government, this could not have been possible. So, this agreement, this ceasefire agreement, calls for cessation of all hostilities along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. As expected, and as it has happened many times in the past also, Pakistani media, both print as well as electronic, is abuzz with rumors that perhaps for the umpteenth time, a sellout of Kashmir has taken place, sellout by Pakistan. This is the accusation they make every time there is a step forward towards the resolution of Kashmir dispute. Though this ceasefire is not even near to a solution or a resolution of the Kashmir problem, but then they are saying that the Kashmir issue has been put on the back burner. Well, if Kashmir has been put on the back burner, it is not a recent phenomenon. This had happened in 1973 after the signing of the Simla agreement between Pakistan and India. Simla agreement which resulted as a consequence of the 71 war. We can say that the Kashmir issue was formally put on the back burner by signing the Simla agreement, which redesignated the 1949 ceasefire line, which has resulted as a consequence of the first Kashmir war fought between India and Pakistan in 1947-98. So that ceasefire line, which had come into existence as a result of that war, that was the first Kashmir war, it was redesignated as a line of control. And the line of control was then given the sanctity of an international border, implying that there would be no change in that and no party would try to unilaterally alter it. So this was the situation regarding the putting of Kashmir issue on the back burner. Till now, when a ceasefire has taken place between India and Pakistan along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the criticism on this agreement, that is the ceasefire agreement, is a corollary or a continuation of the criticism that was generated in the wake of the abrogation of Article 370 by India in August 2019. In August 2019, as we know that India under Prime Minister Modi annulled the 370 Article 370, which provided or which called for a special status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That is the portion of Jammu and Kashmir state which is under the Indian occupation. And at that time it was stated that the Indian government has outfoxed Pakistani leadership. There were 3 points which were generated at that time in criticism of the annulment of Article 370 by the Indian government, that is by Prime Minister Modi. The first point was that as a result of the annulment or abrogation of Article 370, the ability of Kashmiri people to unify under a single entity has been eroded. The second objection to that was that after the abrogation of Article 370 and trifurcation of the Indian-held Kashmir into 3 union territories, there was no option left for Pakistan and for the people living in Azad Jammu and Kashmir but to wage a war, an armed struggle against Pakistan. It should not be short of going to a full-fledged war against India. And the third argument which was given was that, the third point which was given in criticism of the annulment of Article 370 was that in order to facilitate the people of Jammu and Kashmir who are waging a peaceful struggle against the brutality of the Indian army, the people living in Azad Jammu and Kashmir should be allowed to cross the line of control in order to help their kith and kin in the occupied state, in the occupied Kashmir state. So that was the position after the annulment of Article 370 by India, and this is the position after the promulgation of a ceasefire along the line of control between India and Pakistan in the disputed state of Jammu and Kashmir. I have been saying in the past also that the Kashmir dispute is a stunt which the previous governments had been using in order to perpetuate their rule. And this had started happening right after the first Kashmir war. We talk about the indifference of various Pakistani administrations towards the people of Jammu and Kashmir. This is not something new. The previous governments, particularly under Nawaz Sharif, as well as the People's Party government headed by Zardari, had been using Pakistan's foreign policy as an extension or continuation of the business deals of the rulers, that is, of Nawaz family and the Zardari clan. And the so-called United Nations resolutions, which were issued after the first Kashmir war, have been used by these politicians those from the bureaucracy, etc., as well as intelligentsia, as a wailing wall against which these people bash their heads every year as a ritual when the annual session of the United States General Assembly takes place. As for going to war against Pakistan, against India on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, it is not that simple. After Modi cancelled the Article 370, that is, when he abrogated the Article 370, what was his intention? What was he up to? He thought that by abrogating Article 370, he would be able to, and actually this happened, that India fragmented the state into 3 union territories, those of Kashmir Valley, Jammu, and the Ladakh region. By doing this, Modi thought that he would break the internal cohesion or the national cohesion of the Kashmiris, and deny them the opportunity or the freedom of action to unify for a coordinated struggle against India. But this is easier said than done. The Israelis are doing this for the last 50 years in the occupied West Bank of River Jordan. What they have done is that they have dotted the West Bank of River Jordan, which they had captured during the 1967 war. They have dotted it with Israeli settlements. And then they have surrounded those Israeli settlements. They have surrounded the Palestinian towns and villages as well as cities by these settlements, thereby creating what they call Bantustans. Now, Bantustan is a term which was used when there was apartheid rule in South Africa. So the white settlers or the white supremacists who were in power in South Africa then called the black areas which were surrounded by the white settlements as Bantustans. So this is what the Israelis are doing. They have created a number of Bantustans in the occupied West Bank of River Jordan. However, they have not succeeded in killing the spirit of the Palestinian people to struggle for independence. Over the years, the Palestinian population in the occupied West Bank and Gaza district has swelled to more than 1 million people. Here, it would be interesting to know that the West Bank of River Jordan can sit easily within district Chakwal of Punjab, Pakistani Punjab. So it is that small. On the other hand, there are more than 1 crore Kashmiris living on the Pakistani side, that is in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, as well as in the Indian-held Kashmir. and the state of Jammu and Kashmir in area is bigger than Punjab. So this is not that easy. Now the question arises, if under the present circumstances, Pakistan Army should go for a war against India. When we talk of Pakistan Army, it means Pakistan Army in consultation or in cohorts with the government of Pakistan, should it go for a war with India? Well, India does, and Pakistan, both India and Pakistan, I had been telling on these videos which I generate on my channel, that both India and Pakistan lack the conventional punch to knock out each other. And both being nuclear powers can go for a limited war under a nuclear overhang if the other side is attrited to the extent that the war is going to be a walkover. For example, if India is capable of weakening the Pakistan government or Pakistan through a series of kinetic and non-kinetic actions, that is by fomenting trouble in the Azad Kashmir region as well as Gilgit-Baltistan, it would then in a limited war can occupy these areas. But then this is going on. India is fomenting trouble in these areas for the last 6 or 7 decades, but has not been able to do so because the separatist movements sponsored by India in these areas are not potent or significant enough to cause any damage to Pakistan. They are just pinpricks, like the raw generated insurgency in Balochistan. So this cannot happen. Neither Pakistan can invade India and impose its decision on it, nor India can do it. So going to war with India is not a sane solution. Pakistan is following a strategy in which the Pakistan army is holding the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, as well as in the northern areas, that is Gilgit-Baltistan. It is holding the line of control in strength, while the Kashmiris are embroiling the Indian army in the occupied state. When the time comes and when the Indian army is attrited enough to lose its balance, there can be a chance to take military action against India, but then it is a far-fetched option. There was an agreement between Musharraf and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in 2005. There was an understanding which called for an out-of-box solution of the Kashmir dispute. And starting 2005, some action had also started on that plan by inaugurating a bus service between Muzaffarabad and Srinagar. And some trade posts were opened between the occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Azad Kashmir, where traders from both sides could sell their goods. The agreement called for um, soft borders, for cessation of hostilities along the line of control, and gradual withdrawal of forces behind the line of control, providing or granting self-rule to the Kashmiris, and some sort of a joint rule at the top. The mechanics of that joint rule had to be devised after negotiations. That was the agreement which had been reached between Musharraf and Manmohan Singh. The governments, I mean, these two people were not alone. These two persons were not alone. This was the agreement or the understanding which was reached between the two governments at that time. But then, after the exit of Musharraf, that agreement, everyone forgot about it. And that is the only solution which had been reached, the parameters of the contours of which had been reached, which could provide a practical solution to the Jammu and Kashmir imbroglio. That is all what I wanted to say in this session. We'll be talking more about such issues subsequently. Till then, bye-bye.